And this Hangout on Air is live, ladies and gentlemen. How you doing? An odd hour to be appearing for CW Chanter to be appearing with you, but we got a special guest, special guest, special. All guests are special, but this guest is especially special, and I'll tell you why. He has resisted the temptation to jump into his car, come to the East Coast of the United States, locate me. He's got the skills. Find me. He's got the skills, and take me out. He's got the skills. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my absolute pleasure to introduce my special guest, and I dare say, coming to be a little bit of a friend, Walter Bosley. Walter, how you doing today?
Hey, CW, it's Monday morning or
It's Monday.
afternoon. For me, it's morning.
For you, it's morning. What time is it? Well, I don't want,
Oh,
no pertinent details.
it's already afternoon, but for me, that's morning.
For you, that's morning. Well, you're lucky.
Yeah.
Don't throw retirement in my face here. You know what I mean? I'm still required by law to come here and pretend to work. Whenever me and it's one of those things. Get used to it, folks. Whenever me and Walter are gonna be talked about together, I'm gonna have to tell the same old what I hope it will eventually become a boring joke of a story. Okay, I've said it before and I said it again. For whatever reason, I was aware of Walter Bosley's work. I knew about him, and for whatever reason, I came across him on Twitter. Followed him on Twitter. He followed me back. And for some strange reason, I don't know if it's like leftover stuff between me and my dad that's unresolved, and his name sounds like the dad. What was it? Ted Bosley was the dad on Happy Days. That's
Tom Bosley. Yeah.
that's the closest clue I have to what could be possibly motivating me to do what I did. Walter would tell you the fact that he didn't report me to the FBI for online harassment is amazing. This dude could not make a move on Twitter. I mean, not make a move on Twitter from like status updates, mood updates, family tragedy announcements without CW Chanter immediately giving the most snarky, bizarro, almost, sometimes funny, but oftentimes just like, why is this? You know what I mean? I swear to God, this is the joke that I always say, and this is true. And then we'll get to the real joke, and we'll do it real quick so we can get to the meat and potatoes of the interview. So, when I say that I was trolling this dude online on Twitter, it's no joke. This is a perfect example. This is a hypothetical, but this will give you a taste of what Walter had to deal with, as a person who has done absolutely nothing to me ever in his life. So it'd be like something like this. December 12th, 2017. It's the anniversary of my dog, my Chihuahua Mindy's passing. I still keep her dog bed out, and occasionally I look at it and will feel a little bit sad. Then I'll remember her, and I'm happy. And I would tweet back. Then immediately, about 5 seconds later, CW Chanter would tweet back to him. So sorry, my condolences on the anniversary of your dog's passing. I think it's beautiful that your happiness always eclipses your sadness when looking at the small dog's bed. But never lose sight of this fact, Walter. The dog is dead. It's funny because it's true, right?
I'm guilty of saying similar things to one of my sisters about our dad.
Well,
like,
at least
get over
it's
it.
his sister, you know what I mean? And paging Dr. Freud, you might have an excuse why you'd want to say something like that. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? But seriously, I would not lay off. I mean, this guy couldn't move. It would be like, January 3rd, 2018. Got up today, had my morning cup of coffee. Can't wait to get to the office and start working on my new book. CW immediately tweets back, "Dear Walter, you can write as many books as you want to. No one will ever read them." Right?
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, and I'm thinking, I remember my reaction was, because the way I am, unless it's an overt, hey, F you, you're an a-hole, that kind of thing. If I don't know the person, the way text works, I'm not exactly sure where they're coming from. I'm like, okay, is this person being a jerk or is it just humor? So I maintain the nice guy thing because I'm like, oh, okay. And I think if you recall, I responded like in like a nice normal social way to some of them because I wasn't sure if you were yanking my chain or not. So I'm like, oh, okay, I'll maintain the
I mean, and like honestly, when he says that, he's being totally honest, ladies and gentlemen, because there have been times when like the quote unquote dead dog tweet would actually get a like from Walter Bosley. And I immediately thought to myself, I'd feel guilty. And I'd say, why? For two things. Number one, I felt guilty that he was giving me the benefit of the doubt and was, nice enough to give me some sort of positive feedback. That was, nice enough. And then number two, it came to my realization that like so few people tweet at Walter Bosley that he probably thought to himself, hey, at least somebody's talking to me. Let's keep Chanter involved. Whoever this kitten cat icon ass is. You know what I mean? And
it's just like when
some of mine are thinkers, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like when they say even bad press is good, right?
Exactly, dude. No, hey, that's the way it goes. So that's all the lead up to the real punchline of the joke for what it's worth. And when I say that this joke is going to get old, this guy's got military history, so he's been in enough funerals and enough celebrations, and enough anniversaries to know these stories will get told and told and told and told and told until the audience in the front row is speaking it along, right? So like this goes on for months. What I'm telling you, you have to understand, ladies and gentlemen, that was like my phone would open up and it would be like a message from my mom, and I'd be like, I'll get to that when I get to it. The phone would light up and it would be Walter Bosley tweeted, and with like I would leave depositions. I'd be like, hold on, I'll be right back. No. You know what I mean? I would immediately get from whatever I was doing. The woman's in labor. Hold on, pauses. Put a pin in that. No pun intended. I gotta make sure that Bosley has no rest.
I gotta mess with him.
Jesus. Anyway, so then it's like, I swear to Jesus, like 6 months into this whole like haterade campaign against Walter Bosley, who again, ladies and gentlemen, let me preface, has done absolutely nothing to CW Chanter other than vaguely occupying the same kind of intellectual space insofar, you know what I mean? Like, really? And it's not even that his opinions are that different than mine. But anyway, we'll get there. Jerry Cthulhu, my boy Jerry Cthulhu, who is the only guy who would ever have to like, comment on any of this interchange between me and Walter Bosley, because when I say that at the beginning, no one followed CW Chanter, and certainly no one followed Walter Bosley. No offense, bro. You know what I mean? It was like your follow list was me, dark journalist, like Wing's girlfriend, whatever, and that was it. You know what I mean? Maybe a family member. There was no, and Joseph P. Farrell. These two guys, it's ridiculous. It's like freaking frack. I swear to God, if you want to believe that there's a cloning center somewhere that's just turning these guys out, trust me, they're just like, the minute that Joseph, it's like the Pharaoh. The minute that Joseph P. Farrell eventually, God bless him, may he live for a million years, passes away from planet Earth, I swear to God that you'll see the hat dematerialize from Joseph P. Farrell's head, and it'll immediately go on to Walter Bosley's head. You know what I mean? There you go. And at some point, I think I'm pretty proud of my Joseph P. Farrell impersonation. I know you do a good one too, so we might have to do dueling Farrells later on when it gets to comedy. But anyway, Jerry Cthulhu finally reaches out to me in a private DM on Twitter. Okay, I opened it up. Hey man, I always love you and your interchanges with Walter Bosley. I'm like, yeah, ha ha ha. I give that guy no rest. He goes, yeah, no shit. He goes, by the way, FYI, and in case you're curious, Walter Bosley has an accomplished history and backstory in military intelligence. He was at one point an agent, and he's currently a private investigator. Not only that, he's a legitimate tough guy who could kick your ass through the phone. And at which point I was like, hey, Jerry, can I ask you a question? Why did it take you 6 months of watching you guys, you know what I mean, coming after this guy with no grease before he decided to tap me on the shoulder and let me know who I was messing with? And essentially Jerry was like, sure. And Jerry, and I know that you know Jerry because Jerry is the co-host of Nox Mente.
Yeah,
right? You're talking about, because I think when we first spoke, I think I may have used his Christian name, but yeah, because you appeared on you, and like when I say that Walter Bosley is like, you know what I mean, has doesn't get a lot of love on Twitter or YouTube, which is incredible because when you go big, when you'll appear on pretty big channels, you'll appear on Dark Journalist channel, et cetera, but you were available to do Nox Mente, and I swear to God, you were like the third person that like went on there. It was I
still do their show. In fact, I think a few months back, I was
okay. Beautiful. You had another dream.
What?
I said you had another dream. I haven't seen the second episode. I did watch the first. Haven't seen the second episode of Nox Mente. Like, comment, and subscribe to Nox Mente, a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful channel, and a great breath of fresh air if you're looking for something at the middle ground between the traditional esoteric and conspiracy theory stuff. You want to see these personalities, but see them, featured in a very different way. Nox Mente with Nish and my boy Jerry Cthulhu. Excellent show. But I haven't seen the second episode with Walter Bosley, but I have. This is be my guess at what it contains. So Walter, give us a dream, and Walter says, "I'm in a room, and C.W. Chanter's there," and then I kick the shit out of him, and I keep on kicking the living shit out of him, and I keep on kicking the living shit out of him until he's dead, and at which point they say, well, this is going to be a hard one to interpret. What could this mean?
Yeah.
Only time this guy, but I'll tell you, I always tell this story. I go, you never, ever, ever, ever got upset with me, even though I was like a kook, total kook. But there was one time, it was like 3 o'clock in the morning. I was like going to bed. I was like probably out of my head. And I looked down and it's a response from Walter Bosley, and it was like, ba, 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 ba. All I remember is ... head so far up your ass, yada, yada, yada. And I was like, oh no. I was like, no, I didn't mean to. I thought, he laughed off dead dog. You know what I mean? I thought that we were Coochie Crunch. I said, what's going on here? But by the time I woke up in the morning, by the time I came to in the morning, as they say, it was removed. He had caught himself. He was like, nope, I'm a nice guy.
Or I try to be level-headed.
You try to be level-headed, and that's tough in this world to be level-headed, right?
Well, everybody can get pissed off, and everybody's got their point where they can be poked and it'll piss them off. What I do try to do is just maintain a less than frantic mode in social media. So those times where, hell, I'll delete or turn private a video if I just simply didn't like the discussion, if I think that I didn't offer a discussion that was actually interesting or on point. I did that with last night's YouTube. I had promoted that I was going to talk about certain things relative to my writing my pulp fiction novels. And after the conversation, which we all had a lot of fun, but after the conversation, I thought, I really didn't touch on the points I intended to, which was the purpose of the talk. And it just really, I don't like doing that. So I just said, okay, those who saw it live, thank you. But, I'm just going to yank this one because it didn't serve any purpose. So, you can imagine how I like to police myself when it comes to the
right
stuff. So,
well, I don't know what to do because your 22 loyal YouTube subscribers are going to be crushed when they come back to the next minute and they find out that the video that they had saved for later is gone.
Exactly. They're going to be, damn.
Like it was Chanter.
Actually, what's interesting is, I had about 22 people, watching. And then when I addressed the sunspot observatory issue that was a big deal last year, oh my gosh, just everything spiked. But the funny thing was, it quickly took a nosedive because I wasn't willing to feed the frenzy of all this wild speculation that was going on with it. I said, folks, it is a criminal issue. I happen to have a source who, this is the wild part for me. It's crazy. I have a source who was close to the issue. Okay. So that's how I knew what was going on. But it's just funny how that YouTube world works because, it spikes when you've got the juicy stuff you're conveying and talking about. But when you don't feed the drip of it, it's always something alarming. It's always something crazy. Mm-hmm. A bunch of people just, oh, well, screw this. I'd rather go hear the guy that's making stuff up.
Right. Well, so I mean, was that for context? You're talking about the Sunspot Observatory, which for a minute turned into a bit of a to-do because it had the nice nexus of connection of being vaguely connected to space, being vaguely connected to the government, and involving some sort of shutdown, which let the people go absolutely wild with speculation.
And some people who should have known better.
Oh, sure.
speculation. I know that happens. I'm not naive in that regard, but it's still, when I see people who should know better feeding the silliness.
Feeding the beast. Well, see, what you have is you're psychologically integrated and have a good, healthy relationship with YouTube and online media. Meanwhile, CW Chanter is like always going out for blood because it's the temptation. It is a pure dopamine kick. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know that if I make a video about CW Chanter, how I feel about, the Tibetan sun wheel, whatever, make something up, it'll be like, but if I'm like CW Chanter, David Wilcock has gone too far. You know what I mean?
Well, in my critical videos of them from a year and a half back, I use because it was my genuine response was to be like, come on, you guys, this is BS. That was my genuine response. I wasn't putting on an act. It was like, come on, you guys, this is the last straw, because I had been personally involved in what they were trying to impose themselves onto. I had spoken at the SSP conference, the real one, in Texas, and I had witnessed the Corey Good, David Wilcock crowd trying to. We've talked about this in the past, trying to impose themselves onto that whole scene, as I've talked about with you and dark journalists and stuff. But the thing is, that's why my responses, had a little bit of oomph behind them, because, it was partially kind of a personal thing that I had witnessed. So, I wasn't going to give them any margin. So, but you say your piece and you move on, and
there you go.
If they do something stupid again, you say your next piece.
Right. So, I mean, the frustration I've always felt, and maybe you know how to process this. Well, first of all, let me ask you this level-headedness that you're able to bring to the game, is it something that's just innate to you? This is always how Walter Bosley has been? Is it something that was taught to you by mentors growing up, or is it the result of your training? And do we want to go through your curriculum vitae? Do you want to give it? Because, I mean, no offense, like CW Chanter, I'm like, these letters, I'm like, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, that means something dangerous. I mean, it doesn't matter to me what you want to do.
First of all, on that, I do something as a practice. Usually before I try to do this. I haven't done it with all hosts because I've been on a lot more shows in the last couple of years, but if asked, boom, it's available. But what I usually try to do ahead of time, and you're going to receive this after we're done here today, I'm going to send you a copy of my DD-214, because I believe, thanks to the liars in this field we work in, I think people like me should provide their bona fides. My DD-214 will prove to you that I was in the Air Force, that I'm an officer, that I was an OSI agent, the things I claim to be. Right. And here's the thing. When you go into that work, particularly when you're mentored the way I was, the mentor generally has been looking at you longer than you know. And in this particular case, my mentor was a family member. So he had exposure to me when I was a kid. And he told me this later. He watched me and my sisters for certain things. It's kind of like a vetting process. As a kid, I was not like one of those fighters, quick to get in I was a thinker. I was introverted. And so that was part of my nature that appealed to the mentor to kind of move me towards the career field I went in, which having that as part of your nature is really beneficial into that line of work, because in the line of work I was in, you cannot jump to conclusions, for obvious reasons, but also think about it. You're also equipped with lethal force, right? When you're walking around equipped with lethal force, you can't be the kind of person that, jumps right to the kill first. You gotta be the kind of person that listens and observes and processes and analyzes. It doesn't mean you don't experience emotion. Emotion, that's the human thing. When you're, some of these things we're going to talk about. Yes, they piss me off, but I've just always been the kind of person where it's my nature that I don't let the piss off affect the observation the analysis and the action that I have to take. I take that anger, that aggravation, and I put it aside to take care of the issue. And it comes, I don't know, it comes fairly easy to me. I've just been able to do that. And it certainly, served me in a professional capacity.
Right.
Now, most of my time was spent in counterintelligence, counterespionage, which was, the spy hunting game, the spy running game. I ran double agent ops for a branch of double agent ops for 3 years. And so, they tend to try to get the more introverted cerebral agents into that kind of thing, because that's the nature of the game. It was later in my career that I went into the more dangerous gun-toting stuff in counterterrorism. But
right.
And even then, you've got to think. I had a situation, since we're on this, judgment calls. I had a situation in Kabul, Afghanistan, where literally some guy was trying to kill me with a sword. It was on Chicken Street. Those who've been to Kabul should be familiar with Chicken Street.
Oh yeah, Chicken Street.
Huh?
Chicken Street. That's where my dealer hangs out. I'm at Chicken
Hey.
Street all the time, at the corner of Hot Dog and Way. I've been there.
It's crossed with Flower Street. They call these streets this because literally that's what they sell on those streets. But and that's the Westerner term for it. The locals have their own name for these streets, obviously. But I had parked the car, and I go to open the door, and this sword blade comes flying in above, like the door frame and the top of the car. Now, it was a British vehicle, so the driver's side is right there at the curb. So I go to open the door, and the sword blade comes in right there, and I moved my head in time, or else it would have went right through my head. And I pull the door closed, and I've got the guy's hand caught in the door, but he's still trying to hack at me. Well, all I've got is a full stock AK-47, for a rifle, and a pistol. I can't get the rifle up there. It's just too small because I got to have one hand to keep him, I can't blast him through the door because his body was right there. So I got to go for the pistol. Well, this is all happening fast. So about the time I'm processing that, the sword pulls out, and he stepped away from the car. So I figure, okay, I'm going to barrel out. This is going fast now.
Yeah.
Split seconds. I'm like, okay, I'm going to barrel out of this car, pistol drawn. If I got to cap this guy, I'm going to put him down, and then I'm going to just run like hell to the main street and get back to the compound, because who knows what's going to happen. So I roll out of the car, pistol drawn, and he's being held back by like 4 or 5 younger guys. And a local guy I know, comes up and says, "Oh, no, please don't shoot him. He's just, crazy old man." And I could see he had the Pashtun thing on his head, which means the Pashtuns were friendly with the Taliban, that kind of thing. And what it was just an old man who was probably sick and tired of seeing a bunch of Westerners walking around his streets with their machine guns and stuff. I get it. But my concern was, I'm looking around thinking, okay, where's the attack going to come? This guy was the trying to distract me. Where's the attack going to come? But basically, they had him under control. I understood the situation. Nobody was running up on me. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to shoot anybody today. And I put my gun back, and it was all good. And had I been, somebody who was, more easily, if I was somebody who more easily allowed his agitations and the emotions to control him, I might have flown out of that car, just pop, 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 pop.
Okay? Right.
But I, did it by the book, did it by the numbers, did it by my analysis of my situational awareness. And when I got out, as we're taught, as we're experienced, you identify the target before you pull that trigger. And, and here's the funny thing, CW. The whole time this was happening, inside, time slowed down. This was happening in split seconds, but time felt like it slowed down.
I've heard that. Yeah.
I just felt very calm inside, very calm. I was able to think clearly, and okay, no spike in the heart rate, nothing. So I don't know. I guess I think there's a lot of people like that in that line of work. There are those who don't have that ability and they don't last long, you know, because a lot of times they realize, oh, this ain't for me. But anyway, that's one of my old war stories.
Right. I just want to point out again, remember, folks, that we preface this part of the interview by talking about CW Chanter just kind of drunk tweeting at Walter Bosley on the full-on F around. You know what I mean? Thank you for that training. Oh, my God. And there's people in the audience who are probably like, yeah, that's probably why CW's alive today. You know what I mean? Because like,
you know what? Here's the funny thing, because
you should have seen these tweets, folks. It's like if you ask yourself, Walter Bosley, if you had to do two things, you either relive that moment where the guy comes at you with the scimitar, or you get to live through the last year and a half of you and the CW's back and forth on Twitter. Here's Walter. You know what I mean? That's not an easy bar. You know, like $1 million or a punch in the face. That's an easy call.
It's called compartmentalization. My family and friends that never, you know, that know me personally, right? Because my job, I did classified work and stuff. They never encountered me professionally. They never had to encounter Special Agent Walter. They just knew Walter, their kid or their brother or their friend. And I maintain this smiley, outgoing, you know, I'm just Walter in my personal life. It's not until, you know, if I'm on the job, you know, right, I can do that. And so it's just funny when they would actually see the photos, the place I've been, or hear the stories, they almost can't compute. They're like, wow, it's just a different guy. And, you know, you could get into some interesting discussions of psychology for the compartmentalization of personality, right, and such. I mean, I spent several years when I would travel and stuff, it would be I've done undercover work in my career, and you know, where for several weeks you're somebody else, you know.
Yeah.
And that I never had any trouble with that. It was like in True Lies, you know, go to the airport, you know, you come back from a trip and they hand you an envelope. Okay, here's your Walter Bosley wallet. Here's your Walter Bosley car keys. Here's Walter Bosley, you know, and I'd be giving them all the stuff of the other guy, and that gets locked up, and I go about my business. And it's, you know, there's never an identity issue. There's never, you know, it's just something that was, hey, this is cool. I'm getting paid good money to do this work. So it just, to me, it wasn't a problem. Yeah. I was never worried about, you know, being somewhere as another guy and getting caught. I just, you know, did the business the way we're trained and experienced to do, and fortunately, knock on wood, everything worked out. Right?
So now listen, so we're in conspiracy theory land here, right?
Yes.
So we've already you know, conceded that that you have at points in your life been an agent, and at points in your life have gone undercover. Mm-hmm. We all know that the next jump for a lot of people in our community will be, okay, but that's this guy's a government agent, and he's here. He's playing the part of, I'm Walter Bosley, author extraordinaire. I mean, folks, right, let me tell you, when I say that no one's read this guy's books, he goes on to I wrote a new book, Secret Spaceship #9. Sure. You know what I mean? And meanwhile, he's running an op on all of us. Disinfo out the wazoo. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you know that there's people that will go even 2 steps ahead and be like, CW Chanter there. Now we go. Illuminati, cabal, dark agents. It's the Illuminati rule, Walter. We got to tell them, right?
Yeah.
You know, well, that's a rule that apparently God made with the
revelation method, right?
Oh, it's crazy. So I think that's a good nexus. I mean, because you did a great video that I think is like literally like a masterpiece. And it's a short video, and it came out around the time, I think it may have been the second or third video you did around the time of the Sunspot Observatory issue that we were talking about earlier.
Okay.
Which is this issue you ran through, like all kind of like the different parameters or issues at play if we're talking about how we vet stories, especially, or military, you know, experts. Like, so for example, in this little world, we always talk about guys like David Wilcock and his quote unquote sources.
Right.
In this video you did, and help me out. I mean, I don't know the name of the video off the top of my head, but I think you probably know what I'm talking about, where you basically said if you're the observer, if you're in the audience and you're talking about these issues and these stories, that anytime you basically can't trust any information whatsoever, because there's just so many different possible moving pieces and mechanisms. And if I remember your logic correctly, when something like this, okay, so you have a story that's accredited to some anonymous source that might exist in its own category.
Right.
Then you have a piece of information that's credited to a source of a guy who's ex-CIA, okay, or currently CIA. And then you have other information that's similarly accredited. And the issue becomes, even if you know that it's a CIA agent, even if you know that he's an authority, he or her, he or she, you have no idea what the backstory behind what's transpiring is, why, who they really are, whether they're giving you their personal opinion or whether they're giving you, something that's there that they've been told to give you, whether it's based on the fact that they're a good CIA agent or a bad FBI agent, whatever the case may be, if they're a good hat, a white hat, or a black hat, or if they're just misinformed, or if they're being played. You know what I mean? Like it was basically like, at the end of the day, I realized I was like, this has implications for both. Not only does this have implications with the evaluation of sources and information, I said, this is almost like an existential philosophical argument. It's like the nature of truth, right? And then maybe we could double back, because when you said double ops, is that I'm thinking to myself, like, there's got to be so much psychology involved in that sort of thing, and danger of even a good agent or a good operative. I mean, how do you keep dual lives going on? Some of these people, it's like you hear about crisscross, double agents, but I'm assuming that based on the complexity of the operation that you're doing, or the information you're trying to attain, or the job you're trying to do, it must get real heady, to say the least.
Well, in the context in which I did double agent operations, the actual federal agents are not the ones who are the double. We are running the double. The people who agree to do this, I mean, this is almost heroic guts, because that's the guy. Usually they've never done anything like your work as an agent or undercover, and you're asking them to go to a foreign country using their own name, their real name, to go to an embassy of a target nation's of a target nation and asked to speak to the security chief, which would essentially be like the KGB guy on the scene, or the GRU guy in the case of, if it's military stuff. It's SVR now, I think, but
CVS.
So you're asking this guy, or gal, to get on an airplane and go to some foreign country, and it's called a provocation, to walk in there with a briefcase or box full of classified information. Which I won't go too deep into that, but some of that could be tweaked. But yeah, believe me, anytime one of my people was operational in that sense out of the country. Now, remember, this was the 90s, so we had pagers, right? There was a special code we had arranged where when that individual got home safely, back in the U.S., back home, got home safely, they would page me, or one of the other agents in my branch, with the code, so that we would know. That was how we knew.
Wow.
For 2 or 3 days, this individual would be out of pocket and at the mercy of the GRU or the KGB or whatever target intelligence service it was. So yeah, you're out on the golf course on Saturday, but you're thinking about that pager. You're like, okay, Monday I'm supposed to get they could have decided this is that damn Bosley and those Air Force guys sending us a provocation. They could be rubber hosing the hell out of the guy. You don't know. They could be, interrogating. You don't know.
Wow.
For literally 2 or 3 days, that person's out of pocket until you get that page code, and then you return another kind of code back that you've worked out, and you actually meet with the guy like a week later. You have to wait a week later, and then when you go meet, you have to do all this, what we call it's surveillance detection run, SDRs, dry cleaning. You got to make sure nobody's followed you from where you're at to where
dry cleaning.
Huh?
You said like dry cleaning, like I should know.
Yeah, dry cleaning.
Yeah, dry
Dry
cleaning.
cleaning is actually when you lose a tail, when you shake a tail. You got
Okay.
somebody on you, you need to get them off of you. It's called dry cleaning. It's, I'm one thing that was consistent through all my entire career that I did, no matter which organization I worked for, was surveillance. I'm kind of a surveillance expert, and that's what I do as a PI. I offer my expert services to other PI firms who don't have the surveillance experience I have. But anyway, yeah, that's the that was the nature of the context I worked in with Double Agent Ops. Now, on the part you mentioned about the psychological aspects, this individual, they're playing a role. They have to go in and convince that my counterpart from the then Soviet Union or Russia, the new Russian Federation back in the 90s, they have to convince that their version of a federal agent, okay, that they're really pissed off at America, or they really need this money and they want to sell this classified. They have to be convincing, because that opposition agent, he's going to be always expecting a provocation from American agents, right? So here's the game that's played. He's going to look at what has been brought to him, and he and Moscow are going to decide, okay, is this legitimate info? It could be legitimate info. The guy bringing it could be a provocation from at damn Bosley in America, but the info's good. So they'll go ahead and say, yeah, come back and bring us more, but not really trusting the guy. And then they'll determine what's fake and what's real. Now, as time goes along, if he does a convincing job, they will begin to think, oh, this guy's really a traitor. And at the point where they tell him, we want to stop meeting you here, we want to meet you across town. Let's say they're in Lima, Peru. We don't want to meet you here at the establishment anymore. We're going to meet you across town in Lima over at the mall, and then we're going to, blah, blah, blah. That's when you begin to realize they're buying it. They're thinking my guy is real. Now, all this time, he's got to maintain this charade, because at any time they could say, we're going to polygraph you. Ooh. At any time they could interrogate him and decide we're not buying this. So, that person, it takes a special person to even agree to do this and then pull it off successfully. Right. And because it is potentially very dangerous. And you do have to, there's all sorts of considerations when you're planning ththese things that you have to take into account the possibility that the guy might be interrogated. So it gets you kind of, there's certain intricate considerations in planning these things, but you can only plan so much of it so far of it. But it's like a card game. It's like a poker game. I got to convince you, the American has to convince you, the GRU agent, that I'm a traitor and that, I'm legit. And hopefully our interaction won't result in me getting, the battery clamps on my ears or whatever, and getting rubber hosed, beat the hell out of them. So, yeah, it's, I loved those years I worked in DA ops. It was fascinating. You felt like, wow, okay, I'm really involved in good stuff here.
Yeah, and also you were back apparently on the golf course with a pager. Meanwhile, the other guy's sweating bullets in Lima, Peru.
It's like if you
and
see
I love the clamps on the earlobes. Yeah, we've all heard the stories, the famous clamps on the earlobe.
Yeah, I didn't want to say nipples or balls.
Negative, right? I can't keep on forgetting. It's like jump starting a car. I can never remember. Is it that you put the positive charge on the earlobes and the negative charge on the balls, or vice versa?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You got to make the circuit connect. Or just it's an art form.
Yeah, there's a couple of movies that reminded me of my job. One is with Nick Nolte, a World War II film titled Mother Night, and John Goodman's character in that was basically my job, what I did. And the other one is the one with, I can't think of the title. It's with Leonardo DiCaprio and oh shoot, Russell Crowe. And Crowe is essentially doing the job that, you know, that I used to do. But you see him, he's doing family things at the grocery store, and he's getting satellite phone calls from Leo out in the field, you know, as the action, the operations going on, you know, and Crowe is there getting groceries with the kids or playing golf, I think, at one point. And the whole time, you know, in the 90s, of course, we didn't do that over phones. The guy was just out there in the cold for the 2 or 3 days, and we just kind of sat there, waited, and hoped he got home safely.
There you go, fascinating. And so then you know, you come backstage. Well, you're states, but you know what I mean. Like that chapter of your life comes to a close, and you pursue your personal interests as well as other private investigation gigs. And now we find ourselves you're alive in the world of the blue chicken cult and the various other conspiracies that are abound and around. So how can you help us with your background of knowing how these things work? How do we, the audience, what do you think that the audience should do when they get these brand new pieces of intel? Let's just pick one exemplar, and we can carry it through. You can tell us how you would do it, how you could help educate us. Maybe like imagine you're Walter Bosley, and this is the Mr. Rogers Show. And so this is the conspiracy theory episode of the Mr. Rogers Show, right? I've got a flannel instead of a sweater, but I think, you know, I could pull it off. Girls, you know, this is Agent Bosley, and he's going to tell us today. Oh, sorry.
Let me come right back to that. I have somebody at the door that I have to deal with.
The double agent. No, do what you guys do.
I'll look at the live chat.
I'll fill questions. It'll be great.
It's a guy doing work at my house. Sorry.
Sure it is. Sure it is. Whatever you say, double agent, you. How's everybody doing in the live chat? I see people in the live chat. How are we doing? You enjoying the show? Are you enjoying the show? Are you not entertained? The interesting thing talking about to a guy like Walter Bosley, and we'll get into it, is that really honestly and legitimately, here's a guy who knows his stuff. Stacey Herrick, I checked the freaking chat. Well, okay, I'm checking the freaking chat. What's going on? Is there anything interesting? I am looking at the live chat right now. So if there's anything, interesting. Tell us about what email? Okay. Robert Kelly's info about Joy. Okay, where am I looking? You'll be interested in this. I know this because this was a controversy. So, while I have this opportunity, I did an interview with Kelly from Explaining Esoterica, as you know, talking about the data dump that we did. Oh, here's something interesting we need to talk about as well. You know, my alternative channel where I had the video about the doxing team over at Corey Good's Blue Avian Sphere Being Alliance has been removed. Okay, I'm looking right now. She was removed, apparently for a privacy strike. We'll go through that. Send her a link.
Okay, I'm back. I apologize.
Walter, things have actually evolved interestingly enough, because I know you had a personal question regarding the last video that I was about to address the issue with the live chat, and apparently Kelly might be in the audience and have new information for us.
Oh, yes.
Okay, because so let me give the context. I have sent a Google Hangouts link to Explaining Esoterica. Okay. Mm-hmm. So if she's still there, Kelly, if you're there, please know that the link has been sent to you on Google Hangout. There you go. Perfect. Okay, there you go. So let me just do this briefly before we speak to Kelly. So for context, what has happened is the following. When, the nexus of the origin of this interview with me and Walter, that was a long time coming, was predicated upon this. This is what happened. So when I was interviewing, Explaining Esoterica Kelly about her decision to give me screenshots of the insider at Serbian Alliance Above Majestic Business closed Facebook group, who turns out to be the doxing team behind the dox on myself, as well as Joe from the Carolinas, as well as some other meme action against various people, including Walter Bosley. A statement was made regarding claims of by an individual known as Joy Jackson, who was the person behind the Organa Alderana Twitter handle that doxed me and my father. It was the Thomas Crown Twitter handle that doxed Joe from the Carolinas specifically. But a statement was made regarding claims that someone, Miss Jackson herself, I'm sorry, Miss Jackson, had edited a work by Walter Bosley. Walter had some umbrage about this, and we made a retraction on Twitter, but I'll make it again here tonight, that Walter Bosley refutes the statement that from Miss Jackson that anyone has ever helped him edit one of his books. But now I guess that's what's going on.
Interesting.
Here we go. Kelly?
Yes.
What's shaking?
All right. Can you hear me?
Kelly.
We can.
So I just got. Hey, Walter. I'm so sorry that you got pulled into all this.
No, hey, you know, we're just going to clarify because it's their shenanigans, not ours.
True. So she just sent me an email, saying that she keeps receiving spam messages claiming that I claimed that she edited your book. She said what happened was that I randomly asked her to submit a question for them about one of his books, and therefore she is not edited nor claimed to edit your work. That's what she's saying. That's not exactly what she said to me, but that's what she says now.
I bought, Kelly, there seems to be a little bit, the connection seems to be a little bit fricazy, so we didn't catch all of that. What is Joy's statement regarding what is Joy's current statement regarding her previous statement about being involved in Walter Bosley's editing? And then I'll allow you to state your opinion as to what you originally heard that was the origin of your original statement about her editing Walter's book, if that makes sense.
Yes. So her statement is that Gaia asked her to submit a question for Walter, and therefore she read his book, and that she did not claim to edit the book. Okay.
Now, what's your take on that? I mean, if you feel comfortable giving us, or are you of service and telling us her new statement, or do you have anything that you want to say for yourself regarding your original statement about it? And there's no wrong answer, obviously.
Original statement about it.
I
can tell you that the message that she sent to me about it, she was talking about different people with regards to Gaia. Can you still hear me? I'm sorry. I keep
it's a little bit crazy. You can tell by we're trying to get close. So I'm sorry. Repeat that. I apologize.
What she said to me, or my interpretation of what she said was, at the time she was working with Gaia, so she specifically said she worked with her at Gaia, which I don't think is true. She said that she also worked on Walter's book. That's basically what she said.
Kelly, it's at this point that I'm going to do the following. I have to do the typical conspiracy theorist on YouTube statement of, obviously, the powers that be don't want to have us hear this information because your connection is so cooped that, I mean, I don't, Walter, I don't know, can you hear her or?
No, it's garbled.
It's garbled.
Curiously garbled.
Would you say that it's dark cabal levels of seriously garbled?
Yeah, when she is trying to say the operative point that we need to hear, that's when it garbles.
Interesting. Okay, so hold on. So I turned off my camera to see if that would improve bandwidth. I don't know if that has anything to do with anything.
Okay, I went to a different area. Can you guys hear me better now?
We can hear you. Yes.
Better. Yeah.
Okay. So you got the whole point of what she said. So, right. We got that part.
Yeah, her new statement is that that she had been asked by Gaia to submit a question about Walter Bosley's book, and therefore she had to read it.
Yes.
That's
okay. What she said.
Okay.
The message that she sent to me pretty much said that she was talking about a bunch of different people that she was suspicious of, and then brought up Walter Bosley and said that when she was working at Gaia, which I don't think is true, because now she's changed it to Gaia asked her to submit a question. But she said when she was working at Gaia, she worked on his book and she reviewed his book. So I don't know. So it's kind of questionable on that whole piece of it.
Okay. So listen, you know what? I think
I have appeared on Sean Stone's show Buzzsaw.
Yes.
So Gaia flew me back there year before last, and stayed overnight, did their show, then flew back home. So, if I don't know if she ever really worked for Gaia. I don't recall ever meeting her, so I don't know if she worked for them, if she was one of the people that was there. I remember dealing with Jay Widener and the production staff. But that's interesting how her story seems to change between the first time you heard it and what she told you now.
And it's also interesting. It's like, I don't know why a person would have to read. I don't know why someone would have to be tapped to read a book to ask a question. I would assume that you would just, in the context of Walter Bosley, I mean, unless she's like ghostwriting questions to be presented to Walter by Sean Stone. But then again, no offense, knowing Sean Stone, I would say this is that if the statement didn't lead off with "Oh my God, Sean Stone," I was in the same room with that chiseled, handsome devil of a man, then I think the whole story doesn't make any sense at all. But that's just me, and some people say I'm impressed.
Well, I mean, that basically it sounds like she's talking. Sorry, it seems like she's referring to that time frame that Walter's also talking about with Sean Stone's show, because in that same message, she also is talking a lot about Sean Stone and different people. So,
there you go. So that makes sense.
Yeah. So
we're talking
about Sean Stone. My book, most likely Shimmering Light, maybe Origin, because Sean had me talk about both. And briefly, they were interested. They had told me they were interested in doing a documentary on, featuring me and my work. That never happened. But yeah, there was some Gaia interest in what I was doing, but it wouldn't surprise me if she had some association with them, because she's associated with Good and Wilcock and probably their old show or the show that he used to be involved with. So it's a whole murky thing, and they kind of make it that way.
Well, so listen, here's what I'll do. I'll fall on the sword and say the following. If any misstatement was made, even if it was made by Kelly, don't worry. It can all be attributed to C.W. Chanter, because, as everybody knows, I've put the whammy on her, right? I'm her handler. I MK Ultra'd her. She was like, excuse me, Mr. Chanter, I don't know why you keep on bothering me. And I said, you don't know why I'm bothering you? Moon River. The girl started giving me screenshots. I'm like, no screenshots of the group, honey. I don't need the phone book, please. What are you doing here? And then I realized I was off key, so I brought up an octave, and then she was like, then we got her doing it correctly. There you go. Thank you so much, Kelly. Thank you so much for joining us.
And you're welcome. I'm glad I could provide some clarity on that whole thing. I'm sorry about all that.
It happens. The most important thing to know is that Walter Bosley does not work with editors. Walter Bosley does his own stuff from start to finish, right? Well, except for the writing, which is done by a computer.
And that's painfully obvious, as any of my readers will know.
No, there are no Walter. Listen, I don't want you to live in denial. I love you and thank you. God bless you for the service to the nation. I don't know how many times I have to tell you, Walter, no one reads your books.
Oh.
All right. I'm going to leave now. Thanks, guys.
You are going to, before you leave, though, I just want to say one thing. Huh. Somewhere over the rainbow. That's Kelly. See you later. Now she's going to jump off the, don't. Out the parking garage. I don't know why I had to say don't, like you should actually do it. Kelly from Explaining Esoterica, everybody. God bless her. So there you go. Hopefully issue resolved.
Yeah, I think so. I think it was just, again, it was just the murky off the cuff things that are said and
yeah.
And the only reason it matters to me is I try to be somebody with integrity, and I don't want anyone out there claiming credit for something of mine that had nothing to do with it, because I give credit where credit's due. And so, it's a personal integrity issue for me. That's why I wanted, it to be clear that it was out there, and I wanted it to be clear that no, neither this person nor anyone else. I think 10 years ago, I had somebody that was supposed to do editing, and they did not deliver. They did not do it. I ended up having to do it myself. And
I keep on explaining to you, it was a tough time in my life, and I don't know why the heck you'd want me to edit your books, but hey, I figured I'll take the gig. No one's gonna read this shit anyway.
But that's the closest I've ever come to somebody editing my material. And again, I say, and it's painfully obvious. See, that's the thing going in my favor. People look at it and they go, "Oh yeah, he definitely edited this himself." Because I tend to not. When I get something done, I want it out there. And in fact, I'm doing that this week. I'm in the middle of revisions on my new book. I'm trying to get it out here sooner than intended. So I'm in the middle of that process right now.
Right. And again, like I said, this is my opportunity to kind of live tweet you face to face. Walter, you can do whatever you want to do. It
doesn't matter.
There you go. You might as well write it backwards. You might as well just take your old book and submit it in a new cover, because ain't no one gonna know the difference.
Yeah.
So no, what's your new book? Plug your new book.
It's just in my Secret Missions series. I have a
series. Look at this guy.
I don't reveal specifically what the new book's about until the day I release the cover art. It's a personal, it's just the way I do things. Part of it is because, I like to do stuff that's fresh. I don't like to, I don't work in the realm that a lot of other people in this field where I just write, the 15th book about the same thing everybody's talking about. I tend to come at it something from a different angle, or I tend to just do stuff that's kind of out there, from what the field's doing. And I like when my books come out, I like them to be fresh. I like people to say, "Oh, a new Walter Bosley book, and hey, look what it's about." I don't like revealing it ahead of time so that for 3 months or 6 months, people already know what the book's going to be about. Right. And it kind of takes away some of the excitement. So it's just a habit of mine, but it will be revealed very soon. So.
Well, let me ask you a question. So you don't want to reveal the contents or the kind of the gist of the new book, but you said this was of a series. Is there kind of an underlining theme like that, or theory or idea that runs prevalent through all of them? Do you want to share that with us?
Yeah, it's called my Secret Missions series. And what I've done is I've done 3 books so far, and each one looks at an historical figure who I think was literally on what I call a secret mission. For example, the first one was about Juan Cabrillo, and in that book, Juan Cabrillo, the Portuguese explorer that was working for Spain and did the first European exploration of what we know as California today, and this was in the 16th century. And in my book, I propose that he was he had become a Templar Knight. This, of course, is post-persecution of the order, when this all had to be undercover and skullduggery, and that he was involved with locating the vault where Templar relics were hidden in California, and that his death was faked. And he changed identities and spent the remainder of his life essentially being the custodian of these relics in this particular vault that was in California. So that was his secret mission. Now, the second book is about Sir Richard Francis Burton. Now, here's a man who wrote profusely about everything he did. If you look at his life, I mean, he took this trip to Utah. He spent 3 weeks in Salt Lake City. And this is singularly the most boring thing he or anyone else must have ever written. It's just god awful in its details. I bring that up because there is a 4.5-month period of his life where he disappears into the South American wilderness, and he never wrote a single word that has ever emerged about what he was doing or where exactly he went. I mean, and we know that this is a man who was fascinated with ancient civilizations, right? Mm-hmm. And we know that in the South American wilderness, there are the megalithic ruins, and there's the legends of lost cities and stuff like that. So in my book, I argue that that's exactly what he was exploring, but he was doing it for secretly for the Royal Society, maybe British intelligence. And it's titled The Lost Expedition of Sir Richard Francis Burton. I argue that it was the one expedition he went on, never wrote about it because it was classified, probably because of what he found. And it gets into an interesting tale about this document called Manuscript 512. You can look that up. And I really enjoyed writing that book. It was my personal favorite until the new one that's getting ready to come out. But then the third one is on Ambrose Bierce. And in that, I argue that I think he became, after he came off active duty during the Civil War, at the end of the Civil War, he became a Treasury agent. And I argue that there's evidence that he remained a Treasury agent for the remainder of his life, being involved with various intelligence things as it might have come up. And I think he was involved in the 1890s Airship Mystery, Airship milieu. I think he was associated with people. We know he was affiliated with people who are suspects in that mystery already. And also I get into his disappearance. As we know, Ambrose Bierce is probably now most famous for having disappeared in 1913. He rode his horse into Mexico, never to be seen again, after one last letter to his daughter and his secretary. And I get into, where I think he went. He said 5 or 6 times in print and in private letters that he was going to go to South America, and yet all the historians and conspiracy theorists insist that he died in Mexico. I argue that he did not, that he made it to South America. But all the books have in common the lost technology of a forgotten civilization. Cabrillo, there he is involved with Templar relics, and it involves this, forgotten civilization stuff. Burton, I think he was directly looking for and was involved with stuff that had to do with this forgotten ancient civilization. And then, of course, Bierce, he was interested in that kind of stuff. And I think that when he went into Mexico, there were agents of the Office of Naval Intelligence at that time who were that aspect of what they were doing was undercover because they were professional archaeologists. Okay. And yet they were ONI agents working against the Germans because this was, prior to us entering World War I and all that intrigue. So you have this lost civilization theme and this ancient mysterious technology theme that runs through this whole series, secret missions. So secret missions for the historical figure in that, I believe, was definitely looking for these kinds of things and encountered these relics and maybe some of this ancient technology. And it's a colleague of mine has read the book kind of as a peer review, colleague review, and says this is going to be a humdinger. This is a biggie. So I'm really excited to be getting it out here soon.
Right. So now we know Joseph P. Farrell's impression of the book.
Yeah, exactly.
No, listen, I'm telling you. I was like, oh, gee, I wonder who it could be. Humdinger gave it all away. Yeah. You're getting rusty in your old age, Walter Bosley. Yeah, I know, man. You should have done something like said it was really cool, and I've been like dark journalist. Here we go. No, anyway, where can people get your books, my friend?
My books are available only, and there's an asterisk by that, and I'm going to explain it. My books are primarily available print on demand at Lulu. And I pulled my books mostly off of, I pulled most of them off of Amazon. They were on there as Kindle books only. I pulled them because I really got screwed with their process once. And they're not good for small press publishers or indie authors, that kind of thing. So all you will find on Amazon Kindle are some of my novels and my one of my nonfiction books, or two actually, the Disneyland book and Shimmering Light. I do offer those there, but for the most part, it's the rest of it's all at lulu.com.
Lulu.com. I guess it's back. They'll just go to Lulu.com, search for Walter Bosley. They'll be able to hook themselves up with some quality Bosley.
And if you go to my if you go to empireoftheWheel.blogspot.com, I think there's a link to my Lulu page there. I think from my YouTube channel, I think there's a link to the Lulu page there. But yeah, if you go to lulu.com and put my name in, the page comes up and all my nonfiction and all my fiction is there. And they put out a good product. The physical books are nicely done. They're I keep them reasonably priced, and they're pretty quick unless it's the holidays and printing it up and getting it out to you. So
there you go. Well, your YouTube, the link to your YouTube channel is in the description box below. So for people wanting to get there, definitely recommend that you go over there. Definitely subscribe. Very look, you see, Walter's a great guy, and then you can go ahead and then follow the links there to get these wonderful books. You know, folks, why not? I mean, he works so hard on them. Obviously, it makes sense if at least one person reads them, right?
That's right. Somebody at some point has to
actually
read the damn book, other than Joseph Farrell.
There you go.
One of the reasons why, you know, the integrity issue, when, you know, we were talking earlier about people claiming this, claiming that about the books. Number one, I'm very proud of the fact I've been a publisher for 17 years almost. I have published other authors. It's not a vanity press. Nobody's ever paid me a dime to publish their books. It's a legitimate publishing company, but it is a one-man operation. And I'm very proud of that. I work hard. I do the cover art. I do the editing, everything. And my content is already so far out there on the limb of speculation that I make sure that, you know, I do it with as much integrity as possible. You know, I admit fully up front when I'm speculating. I'm not one of those writers or researchers who, you know, like somebody who tells you about this dark cabal doing all this crazy stuff, and I offer no evidence, no, you know, footnotes, no nothing. I don't do that. I work hard to be as, you know, to present my stuff with as much integrity as possible, because it is still, in many people's eyes, really wild speculative stuff. So that's why it's important for me when an integrity thing comes up that I get that clarified.
Get on top of that. So look, let's go back, because we
Yes, I'm sorry about
no, not your fault. Look, the mysterious knock on the door. Someone had to come in from the cold, I'm assuming.
Exactly.
We had Kelly, and all of a sudden we started talking about your books, which obviously is a relevant thing that we need to talk about.
Yeah.
So going back a little bit in time, let me lay this out to you. To help me, what would you do? So it's the CW Chanter kids show. We've got our special guest, Agent Walter, and Agent Walter is going to tell us, kids, when you see a piece of information posted by, let's just say, I don't know, hypothetically, douchebag Corey Good on Facebook, right? He does one of his new douchebaggy posts about Gonzalez, Igor Stravinsky in space, or whatever the heck he writes about. He's made one of these Facebook posts, and you're going to help tell the kids, folks, kids at home, here's what I would do if I were you, if I were trying to figure out how to value this information, how to evaluate this information, or what to do with any information. If it comes from an agent, if it comes from someone like Corey Good, can you give us like an ABC 1, 2, 3 to help the community to say, here's what I think people should do at a bare minimum to put this information in context or to evaluate it?
Yeah. First of all, we have to acknowledge that this field, this community, this world that we both kind of work in or operate in, it, unfortunately, I'll say on the unfortunate side of it, it encourages storytelling, because we all like to get together and share our spooky stories, our weird tales. Okay. And this field, unfortunately, can push the storytelling without anything to back up these stories, and accept that. It will give the stage, the spotlight, the camera to the storyteller, because the stories are, you know, fun for people to hear. And the deal is, when they give these people the stage, is that you're just supposed to hear their story and accept it without questioning it. Now, the reason this gets intense and why it really is a problem or becomes a problem is when money becomes involved. When somebody determines that, hey, I can go into the UFO world or the secret space program world or the whatever, this new age, that new age niche, and I can tell stories and I can make money. I can maybe make a living a little bit or enhance my income by appearing at this show or going on that show and telling my wild stories. And I never have to back them up. All I have to do is speak earnestly and swear that it's all true. And if somebody criticizes me, all I have to do is say, oh, they're one of the bad guys. You know, they're trying to discredit me. And unfortunately, the people hearing this, that are reading the books, listening to the shows, watching the videos, you know, these are people that are interested in, you know, well, what's the truth? What's really going on? You know, with UFOs, with ETs, with this secret space program, you know, what's the real deal? And when they're being fed this, they're not being given anything in the way of substantiation for these, you know, stories.
Right.
So, my advice is, as fun as it is to hear them, people, if you're looking for the truth, now, if you're just looking to be thrilled and titillated and entertained, fine, listen to the crazy stories all day long and enjoy them. But if you're somebody who's really wanting to understand the truth about something, my advice is to just, you know, when you hear a story, just kind of politely, you know, oh, okay, that's great. Thank you for that information. But don't base any of your conclusions on those stories. Ask the storyteller, you know, ask them, well, how can you back this up? You claim you were a time traveling, space jumping commando. You start with, as I mentioned before, that I'm going to send you after the show, you start with the DD-214. Well, can I see your DD-214? Now, how some of these scammers have gotten around that is, or whoever's behind these scammers, they're starting to get guys who actually, you know, it appears did serve in the military. So they have a DD-214. But now the story is, well, I have a DD-214, but all of this secret space program activity was done, you know, in a special access program. So, you know, none of this is really going to appear on my DD-214, which there is a truth to that, because my DD-214 and anybody else's, all it does, CW, is prove that I was on active duty, what branch, the date and place I entered, the date and place I came out of the military. It says my basic job specialty. Okay. It lists my training, special and basic training that I had, and it lists my decorations. Okay. It does not list on there specifically that I did double agent ops at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, or that I was the counterintelligence branch agent at LA Air Force Base. It doesn't get into specific casework and stuff like that. So that's how they're able to fudge and get around, you know, if they do have a DD-214. But, you know, if some guy claims to have been in the military, this, that, and the other, and he cannot produce this form, this DD-214, that's a red flag. Or if he won't, that's a red flag. My advice is for people to just walk away from those people. Don't give them even another minute of your time. Okay. Just don't entertain their nonsense anymore, and look for the people, as boring and as dry as it may seem, look for the people who are actually writing a book that also actually has footnotes and cites sources of data that they claim, you know, or that they point to in their books or in their talks. Look for people who, in the case of Secret Space Program, for example, you know, look for the researchers that are digging out the financial information, like Catherine Austin Fitts. You know, she says, hey, where did this $21 trillion go to? That kind of thing. And, you know, she digs out info like that. Again, our good friend Joseph Farrell. One of the books that the Roswell ET hypothesis people hate is Joseph Farrell's book, Roswell and the Reich. And yet, to a person, when I've asked if they've read the book, they say no. They refuse to read it. It's the most inconvenient book on Roswell, even more so than my Shimmering Light book, because Joseph did his homework. He tracked down actual real-world historical context um, technological facts and development that was going on. And he says, look, this was not an ET event by any means.
Okay.
And I argue the same thing coming from a different approach in my thing. And that's not as fun as saying, oh, an ET craft crashed and they reversed engineer it. But the thing is, there's no substantiation for the Roswell ET hypothesis. Any of the sources that they point to, any of the so-called witnesses they point to, were years ago already shown to be either fake, identities, or their stories are questionable, or
Right.
stuff was even being made up.
This would
but
be
yet
like
people
guys like Colonel Corso and stuff.
Yeah, well, Corso did, in my opinion, kind of a sleight of hand. But yeah, they point to that, and they're just so in love with the ET hypothesis that they cling to it. Now, I'm not speaking to the clingers, because the clingers aren't going to listen to you. I'm talking with the people that really, they're out there, they're open to hearing what I'm saying, and they want to really understand the truth of, what's going on with these things. So I hope I didn't go too far around the barn, to say that the time has come really to stop giving the storytellers so much time, so much credibility, because quite frankly, so many of them have proven to be frauds and liars. And you just got to ask yourself, are you interested in finding the truth, or do you just want to be entertained?
Right.
Go from there.
So, taking it to maybe say the next level of sophistication, or underneath the real level of sophistication. So you got a guy like Corey Good. He might be easy to knock out of the box. We do these evaluations of the information, whether or not there's backings, information, whether there's research, whether there's an established line of causation, or whether they can produce this any documentation establishing any aspect of their backstory. What about, say, something like a little bit more meat and potatoes, like something like the JFK assassination, where a person might be reading books or looking at research or talking to witnesses who can prove that they were a police officer on the scene at the time, or in the town that the incidences occurred, or they're this agent, or they were associated with this agency or that agency. People that might be used to spread disinformation, people that might be used to spread. Because, like I said, that great video. I wish I could bring it to more specifically to your attention. Could you maybe give us a little background, like what you're talking about there, with the notion of, even if you get testimony from an agent or someone associated with government or some official, how many levels of questions you need to bring to the table because of all the different possible explanation for the backstory or what's going on?
Yeah, it's actually a pretty simple truth, is that even when somebody can prove their bona fides. I was a police officer in Dallas, and I was working the day that JFK was assassinated, and I was one of them that went looking for this Lee Harvey Oswald guy. Okay, even if that officer can prove that he indeed was all that, okay, that's just a good start. Okay, for instance, when I give you my DD-214, that's just a good start. Okay, you don't know whether, like we joked about earlier, you don't know if I'm telling you the truth after that. All I've done is I've taken that step to prove to you that I indeed was in the Air Force, active duty Air Force, that I am a commissioned officer. When you're a commissioned officer in the United States, the commission is for life. Okay, I can be pulled back onto active duty at any time at the whim of the United States government until I'm 62 years old. Okay, but your commission is for life unless you resign that commission. Now, you do active duty during a prescribed period of time. I can prove that, and I can prove that I was an OSI agent. Now, part of why that's important is, if I were lying about that, that's technically a felony. I'm impersonating either a military officer or a federal agent. If you'll notice, when you listen to a lot of interviews of mine, a host will introduce me as a retired or former FBI agent, and you'll notice that I waste no time in correcting them. I say, no. I was a specialist, an operational specialist for the FBI. I was a special agent for the Air Force OSI. And why is that? Number one, it's an integrity issue, a personal integrity issue. I like these things to be right when identifying me. Also, those former employers don't like it when there's people out there saying they were this when they were not that,
Right.
For them, it's an integrity issue too. So that serves my bona fides a little bit more when I can give you the DD-214 and you could follow up on it to the extent that, the government allows you to, I can tell you my ex-wife, my son's mother, is right now, this is a fact, she's a media representative for the FBI in the Los Angeles office. You could call her up.
There you go.
Yeah, and she could say, I know that bastard. Yeah, I was married to him. Yeah, he worked here.
But then we could also see, because then you're also allowing the audience at home, the private conspiracy flat earth theorists, to go, there we go.
Yeah,
he's an actor. He's an author. Fiction and speculation.
The one thing I can tell you is those close to me and know that. Here's the thing. I can tell you this. If I were, what people suspect, I promise you, because I worked in this world, I would be being paid for this. Okay. And I'd be driving a little bit nicer car than the one I have. I would have no worries about putting the groceries on the table.
Right.
I would be able to fix the things around my house that desperately need fixing. The point is, anybody who's close to me will tell you, well, he obviously, if you're looking at the pay criteria, he's obviously not some type of undercover disinformation agent, because I promise you I would be paid while I was doing that.
Okay? Well, we could, but hey, we have to both acquiesce that you could be talking to me from a set, right? You could get out of your Lambo, right? You come out of your Lambo, put on your Walmart civvies, get on set.
How do we know that really Walter Bosley, isn't a character that I'm playing? We don't.
Hey, baby, how do we know you're not a hologram? Into the level of speculation in this community is so great, we have to disprove that you're a hologram.
Yeah, if you see Tupac Shakur and Michael Jackson come in behind me dancing and rapping and stuff, then am I a hologram too? It could be the case. But yeah, you're right, and that's a very good point. And I think that was part of the point that I was telling people is, we all have to acknowledge. I understand why people question, me. Some people, question me and if I'm legit, and so forth. And I understand that. I could sit here on your show and other people's shows till I'm blue in the face saying, but I'm not that, but I'm not that. And they don't really have a way to know for sure. That could just be part of my cover. Now, it's my opinion. This is opinion, folks. From my perspective, what I'm talking about is why I suspect, and I could be wrong, folks. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. I like your 3 times thing that you do. I suspect that Luis Elizondo, for example, could very well be a contract employee for the CIA. The scenario is retire on Friday as a staff employee, report on Monday as a contract employee. Now, as a contract employee, he could be working totally operational. And his operational gig is to be Luis Elizondo, TTSA guy. Okay, there's too much CIA operational history involved with that organization. We've talked about this in the past. For me to embrace it the way all its fanboys and the people who love it do. Right. And this is the scenario from my perspective that I suspect about Luis Elizondo. Now, if I ever got to know him personally, and he could say, "Hey, you jackass, you're totally wrong. You're off base, and here's why. Let me prove it to you." I'd be like, okay, I said I could be wrong, but based on what I know and based on what you, the audience, the viewers know, this is the possibility. And could I be that? Yes, I could easily be that. All I can tell you is, gosh, I wish I was making the money if that was the case, because again, I would be getting paid a decent amount of money. I can tell you that for a fact.
Yeah. We have an emergency request to know where Tiki is. What's his name? They want proof of life on Tiki.
I just woke him up to say
Secret Agent Tiki.
Hello, buddy. Are you a sleepyhead? Okay, lay down.
There you go. Well, and whoever did that's what we call an Illuminati shame ritual, right?
Yeah,
He
exactly.
gets to be
Kiss the
initiated
dog,
every
right?
when the powers that be need to keep Walter in his place. They're like, okay, it's like Sting and Dune with the little cat that he had to milk for to survive the poison or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you remember that? So there you go. It's like keep it on the level. There you go. So God bless.
Did I come anywhere near answering what you asked me to answer?
I think we're doing. I think you're doing a great job. I mean, I'm a little bit all over the map too. Let me do this because here's my idea. Because we're coming up on 4:44. I mean, this is like coming up at 5 o'clock for me. I have no problem going a little bit long. I just don't want to tax your time or
I do have to get back to my book editing
Okay,
shortly.
so why don't we do this? Here was my idea. I wanted to throw you. There were three things. Oh no, two things that I want to throw at you real quick. No, first of all, let me prioritize you. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about? Anything you had on the agenda that we haven't discussed already that you want to make sure we get on the record or gets explored?
No, I think we sufficiently covered the whole issue that had mildly alarmed me about the claim regarding editing a book. I think we've clarified that, and I can't think of anything.
There you go. So if I can have you, if I can keep you for just a little while longer, what I want is I want to throw two things at you. You know what? I'll throw one thing at you. Okay. And then if we could give the audience maybe just a couple of questions that they could pepper you with, like for rapid fire response. Would that be acceptable to you?
Yeah.
Let me throw something at you that I one time heard you say that's interesting to me. It was regarding boots on the ground on Mars. Okay. You had basically said, I remember I think it was a Dark Journalist broadcast. I believe you were talking to Daniel, Joseph, and yourself, and you were saying something regarding that you were convinced, and I don't want to misquote you or put words in your mouth, that you were convinced that we do have boots on the ground on Mars. And I was like, whoa. So I know that's a big one. That's why I said I'm going to ask you three, and then I was like, no, two. And then I was like, no, I'm just getting with one. Is there something you could tell us about why you think, like, if or maybe this is that if you were to say to people, okay, folks, if you want to know what informs my opinion about boots on the ground on Mars, look in this direction, look at this research, read this book, or look in this area. However you want to handle it, sir.
And I still hold that opinion.
Okay.
And to further, put the finer point on it, to further clarification on it, I think it's a range of anywhere from we have at least done it once to we've done it a few times and there is a rudimentary, what we'd call a station there. I'm not saying there's a major base there. What I'm saying is that I think, this is all my opinion, that at the most there's some type of station there where perhaps small teams can come and go there. At the very least, I absolutely think we have landed there with people. It's at the very least, I think we've tried it. We've at least tried it once, and I think it was probably successful. I don't know. Maybe they died up there. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not basing this on any file that I saw, okay, or any insider whistleblower information that I claim to know or have. What I'm basing this on is looking at the history of the space program, looking at the history of military operations, okay? I think you've also probably heard me say that I don't think that Apollo 11 was the first time we put men on the moon. It makes sense to me that at the height of a Cold War, okay, that we are going to try it on the QT to make sure it works, to make sure that lander works, to make sure that we can, do it and bring them back alive before we go putting the dog and pony show on for the world. Trying it the first time, I personally have a problem with that. That we would have done that for the first time. Now, don't get me wrong. Each time it was done, it's dangerous as hell, okay? Each time it was done, they all could have died. Apollo 13 is proof of that.
Right.
How fragile all that is. What I'm saying is, I think before Apollo 11, we tested it out, we did it, we made sure it worked. Now, why do I think that? Going back to, well, first of all, the logic of let's make sure this damn thing works, number one. Number two, we've always developed aerospace technology, the edge of it, in a classified fashion, and the most advanced we've always kept, classified. Well, why not, a landing on the moon situation? Also, look at Neil Armstrong, the Neil Armstrong question. People have for years said, yeah, he's a humble, aw shucks kind of guy. But I want to ask you something. This man is supposed to be not just the first American, but the first human being to leave this planet and set foot on the moon in return. And Buzz is, the number 2 guy that went up there with him, right?
Right.
Now, Buzz he's out there publicly. Why would even the most aw shucks, humble Gary Cooper guy, not certainly not every year, not even every 5 years, not even every 10 years. You would have thought this guy would have shown up on talk shows more often, been a little bit more, oh, shucks, yeah, I was the first guy, but nothing. And people have pointed out almost how he was embarrassed at the attention, or just didn't want the attention. Now, in my analysis, I have to wonder, is that because he knew darn well he wasn't really the first guy to do it, and he's an honest man? And publicly, he had to acknowledge if it was brought up, yeah, I was the first. But is it because he knew inside that, and they knew inside, the truth, that he really wasn't the first? And that's why he didn't like to be paraded out. That's why he wasn't out there, because he was an honest man. Right. This is my question. And I think that's evidence, just a little piece of evidence towards my theory that Apollo 11 was not our first man landing, not taking away from 11 and the ones after that. So with that in mind, and with the reasons why, as I outlined in my book Shimmering Light, why I think our real secret space program, not the BS that Corey Goode and Emery Smith and Jason Rice and all those clowns claim, those storytellers, the real secret space program, okay, why I think it started in the 1950s as a result of Roswell, which in my opinion was not an ET incident. When I look at all of that, I say, okay, I really think we've tried, at the very least, we've tried to land people on Mars and bring them back. And I don't see why we couldn't have done it successfully, and why, if we did it once, we wouldn't have done it multiple times. I don't think it's to the extent that the storytellers tell. I think we're talking a very rudimentary station camp kind of thing. A hazardous venture, of course. There's always the inherent hazard with any kind of space travel. But I just tried to answer your question. I try to base it on what I think is a as logical analysis of the historical context of the development of space technology and these space operations and the way the military works, and understanding how the world of classified programs work. Okay. So that's what I try to base it on, is a rational approach.
Okay, we already have questions in the live chat. I also know that Darcy was asking a question that we've somehow lost in the shuffle, because I wasn't looking directly at the live chat to not avoid. Right. Davey asks, CW, can I ask, where did Walter come up with the idea of submarines as spaceships?
I was thinking about it. I was talking with I forgot who it was. It wasn't Joseph Farrell. It was who was I talking with about this? And it dawned on me. It's like, well, here you have the Navy for years, has been involved in some pretty interesting things that you wouldn't think the Navy would have been involved in. Case in point, those ONI agents that were also, working as archaeologists and stuff. But that's not even, even the weird, strange stuff. And I thought, well, maybe the Navy would be, it would be logical, because they've been doing this submarine technology successfully for over a century now, or about a century. And it makes sense. It's just from the logic of what a submarine is. It's a self-contained vessel in a hostile environment. And then I learned about the stuff that Gary McKinnon had hacked, about secret space program stuff. And I think I think he's also has said kind of a similar or same thing, that the ships are kind of like tubular, and someone did a drawing of what he described and information he found or something. I apologize if I'm getting it mixed up with someone else, but I'm certainly not the only person who has seen the rationale that a submarine, just putting it in space instead of water, would be the same basic idea. But personally, I came to it just through, thinking of the logic of the situation.
Why is Darcy asking, will he let me back in chat, please? What is the situation? I have no idea what's going on. There seems to be some question about Darcy being in chat. I see Darcy in chat. I don't know. Hold on. Let me see something. This seems like a housekeeping issue, and I really don't know what's going on. Darcy, she wants, please let back in chat. Walters. Oh, Darcy wants back in your chat, Walter.
In my chat?
In your live chat, I think maybe you hit a user or maybe you kicked her or removed her. Darcy,
Oh, did one of my moderators?
Maybe it's possible. Well, I don't know. We asked her. So if you ever see, if maybe is there? Listen, hey, can someone do you mind if someone sends you a DM or an email?
Yeah, send me a DM and explain to me, who you are and what happened, and we'll see if maybe it was just a misunderstanding, on the part of it. Because moderators, how it is when they're helping you out. They just got to make those quick decisions so sometimes, if maybe they boot a person just not understanding that it was a humorous comment or something not meant to be trolling.
Right.
Yeah. Send me a direct message.
Okay. Well, actually that's fine. That's beautiful. Cause that's kind of how we roll here is we like, people are people, human beings are human beings, and all this crazy stories and all this stuff that we like to know that there's people. So it's like, I'm very happy to know that one of the questions asked was to just simply housekeeping of service, allowing a person to say, let me back in the castle. Meanwhile, I want to say, you come to my live chat and you want to get back to Walter Bosley's live chat, dude, I'm on all the time. You know what I mean? That should be all the live chat you need, Darcy. Come on now. What do you need?
The next thing you know, she'll be wanting to read one of my books.
And
the second person to do that, right?
That's it. What's your take on time travel?
Oh gosh. Here we go. I'm gonna say that I think it's possible, and I know how crazy that sounds. Now, when we say time travel, are we talking a machine that we get in that literally takes us, like in the movies, to another time? Less that than I think a mental process, a consciousness process. What I'm really turned on by in recent years is the idea that a human being can throw their consciousness through time. For instance, being able to jump primarily backward into your own personal timeline. If you're 50 years old, okay,
right,
being able to jump back to any point in your life that you've lived in the past, and then of course, reliving your life. Okay, that idea really intrigues me. Or maybe possibly, if we're talking, your consciousness, I'm thinking maybe genetics, DNA, genealogy possibly plays a role in this, and maybe you can jump into an ancestor's body, mind, or whatever, kind of like in the movie Berkeley Square, which so fascinated H.P. Lovecraft, and then he wrote a story where a very similar thing in Berkeley Square. Leslie Howard switches places with an ancestor. His consciousness takes that ancestor's body, and the ancestor is zipped forward into the future. Okay. This kind of concept fascinates me. It's the concept that Jack Finney wrote about in his time travel novel. It's the process that Richard Matheson used for the Somewhere in Time novel that the film was based on. Mm. And it's in my own personal weird experiences that I've had, that it's kind of lended. I don't want to use the word evidence, but it's lended data to the whole reason why I think there's something to human beings able to travel through time using their consciousness.
Yeah, we did. I don't know if you're aware of it. We did a recent kind of group time travel experiment. I have the CW Chanter Secret Space Program Whistleblowers.
Yeah, I was watching some of that. Yeah.
Yeah, no. So believe you me, the notion of the consciousness, that of it, really does intrigue me, and I really do think that you can do some stuff. I mean, a couple of people on my channel did it. We thought we were all messing around. I swear to God, everyone came back the same way, heavily damaged. We had relapses. There was divorce. It was all over the place. It's crazy.
Well, and then there's this other thing about looking through time.
Okay.
See through time. That's very intriguing too. I would like to think. And this is why I put it this way, because I'm admitting that this is my speculation. This is what, this is just, thinking outside of the box, just kind of brainstorming. I would like to think that that's definitely possible. The looking through time thing. Now, for me personally, other people came to this before me. Other people have come to it besides me. My personal switch flipped in the late 80s, early 90s regarding whether, UFOs might be time travelers from the future kind of thing. That's a popular theme out there. And that one first crossed my mind for me back in the late 80s, early 90s. And then, I subsequently learned that, other people suspect this too. So, and going back to what we were talking about earlier, and this doesn't necessarily prove anything, but when you're looking at something and you come to a personal conclusion, and then you see that other people independently have come on their own paths to the same conclusion, consider that, well, maybe there's something there because other independent people are coming to the same conclusion, pulling those same threads or maybe additional threads. Okay. And just like the thing about the submarines and space thing, I personally kind of followed a thread and said, well, that would work. And then I learned that, as I said, I think McKinnon said the same thing. And then others have said a similar thing. I'm like, well, okay, I'm not the only one who thinks this. So, there's reason to, suspect that there might be something to it because other people are seeing the same thing.
Right. Now, so the concept we were talking about, consciousness and time travel, maybe we'll leave it at this because I know you got to get back to your work, and you've given us a lot of your time. Does this touch upon, what do you think about remote viewing? Because there's a lot of remote viewing speculation in conspiracy theory land, of course.
Yeah. Remote viewing. I have to tell you, when I worked on the Empire of the Wheel books, that was a period of my life that was unlike any other. I experienced synchronicity, for example. I hate to use an old worn phrase, but there's no other way to put it. I experienced synchronicity on steroids. It was astonishing. What's the word? What's the word? I just wrote about it, commented on it. Mysticism. What was it? Not psychomysticism, but synchromysticism.
Oh, okay.
Right? Is that the phrase? I apologize.
Is it? It sounds like one of those made up. It sounds like Scientology, synchronicity.
Well, yeah, it is kind of a current thing, but it's wow, this was a doozy.
Got caught in the loop. That's the thing. Well, it's a testimony to what you were just saying about the weird time.
Yeah, this is remote viewing. All of that got kicked off. All this stuff I'm telling you about because I started remote viewing.
Get out of town. Okay.
Somebody was, taking me through the steps to teach it to me. And it was through remote viewing that I started getting things that led to this Empire of the Wheel stuff. And whatever remote viewing actually is, or taps your consciousness into, it opens a door, folks, that never completely shuts. And you got to be prepared for what comes through. And it's the classic thing. When you look at it, it's going to look at you. And every once in a while, when you think that door is closed and, you know, they're not paying attention, the they, the it, the whatever reminds you that it's still there. It'll do it in subtle ways. It'll do it in non-subtle ways. Okay. It, as I said on my Facebook just the other day, it's interesting. There is a bill. The bill will come due. And this stuff is a very patient collector. And the remote viewing opens you up to that. Okay. Now, I'm not condemning it. If you'll notice, a lot of good. I do not regret the experience. I'm not saying that. I'm not, you know, I would not presume to tell people, oh, I did it, but don't you do it. I'm just telling you, be prepared, because there's going to be dark and light and everything in between. And it's going to be something that you may think you have a grasp on. You may think you can describe it and explain it to other people. You might smugly think, well, I got a handle on that. This is no big deal. If you're saying that, you've not really experienced what, in my case, remote viewing, you know, opened me up to. There are still things going on that, you know, I have a colleague who's a friend who has completely withdrawn from all of this. He won't write anymore. He got rid of his books. He won't talk about this stuff anymore. It's because the way this stuff manifested, quite frankly, scared the hell out of him, and still does. And all of this, okay, that he's talking about, all of this started in earnest. Okay, there were traces of it present before, but it started in earnest in September of 2007, when I really started learning how to do remote viewing.
Your friend, the researcher who's totally withdrawn, is this a name that we would recognize?
Yeah, it's somebody that people ask about. It's Sesh Hari.
Who's that name?
Sesh Hari.
Sesh Hari.
The handprint of Atlas and Wonder of the Worlds. And people ask, I'm tell people, don't ask. They say, oh, can I get a copy of these books? Or can you ask Sesh this? Don't bother. He's done. He's out. And he was the one that helped me a lot with the research. He was the one that was the deepest in on the time phenomena analysis that we have done. And he's the one that was doing the telluric current, ley line, so-called maps that are so integral to the research that I did, particularly with Empire of the Wheel. I mean, he was in the thick of it, and he wants no more part of it.
That's interesting. So listen, so as far you had said something about being taught remote viewing. There's a lot of people out here talking about remote viewing.
Yeah.
Is there anyone that you feel comfortable endorsing, or a book that you say, or an author or an instructor that you think is legit or more legit than others?
The guy who taught me is dead. He passed away a few years back. He had a condition, he's somebody who was a complete stranger who called me out of the blue. I can't even remember how he got my number. We had a 3.5-hour conversation, at the end of which he says, I think you'd be a good candidate to learn remote viewing. I'm going to send you some training discs. And he sent them to me. Now, subsequently to that, he came out to California and visited, and we hung out. And you can see this individual. His name was Jeff Harvey. You can see him on the old Roger Lear UFO Hunter episodes, where he had a implant pulled out of his leg, and there were some strange radio properties with that, on and so forth. I didn't get too deeply involved in that aspect of his life. I was there the night that I can't remember her name, but they had a hypnotist put him under and try to get him to talk about this experience. You know, that's when I met Bill Burns and the UFO hunters guys, but I wasn't too involved with that episode of his life. He was just the guy who at the time was the stranger who contacted me. Very interesting timing. I won't get into that, but yeah. And he sent me the basics in how to learn it, and I started to do it, and there were extraordinarily accurate results right out of the gate. And then pretty soon, the results I was getting, Sesheri said, you're remote viewing now on the archetypal level. That's why, you know, what you're getting is, you know, kind of strange. Like most people want to do it. It's like, okay, I lost my keys. Okay, I'll remote view where the keys are. Right. I could not do simple things like that. What I was getting was just all sorts of stuff that would later prove pertinent to the things that involved my Hecate research and Hecate's role in all that Empire of the Wheel stuff. And that's what led to, you've probably heard me talk about Hecate and how my opinion and understanding of her changed from when I first started researching that stuff to today. It's just weird, you know.
Right.
As you can tell, it's a big, huge thing.
I wouldn't come this far and get to this point in the conversation and knowing what you've been talking about synchronicities and stuff and knowing the, you know, a little bit about the time travel stuff. Could you teach me remote viewing?
I don't know if I would presume to, but you know, I could direct you to. Here's an interesting thing. I became acquainted over almost 2 years ago with Lynn Buchanan, one of the famous Operation Stargate Army original remote viewing program guys. Okay, I had the distinct pleasure of just last spring. About a year ago now, a year ago this month, of having a couple hours, just me and him, to talk privately about stuff. And he is involved with training people and has an excellent group. I've become acquainted with one of them. I haven't communicated in a while because we've just both been busy. But I could direct you to him and his group, and it would be much better for you to go through them because they are the professionals,
right?
You know, so to speak.
They're asking a question that I'm only going to put to you, and it could be the last question of the night, but just because it's so mysterious to me, because I don't know what they're talking about. Can you talk about Wilson? Does that mean anything to you, Wilson?
Yeah, Wilson means a lot to me. In a nutshell, Wilson, as my mentor told me, I first heard the name in 1992. My dad was in the hospital for a blood clot. It was the year before his heart transplant. And he was sedated and just really drugged out in the hospital bed. And he started mumbling and gibbering about a crystal house or a crystal structure and somebody getting killed. And Wilson, he kept saying the name Wilson. So I was working for the FBI at the time. So as soon as I could, this was 92, we didn't have cell phones. As soon as I could get to a phone, I called my mentor to just tell him how my dad was doing, because my mentor is an uncle, my mom's brother.
I remember.
And I said, hey, he was gibbering about some stuff, and he mentioned this name Wilson repeatedly. Who was Wilson? And my mentor was quiet for a moment. He says, I can't talk about Wilson with you over the phone, but when I see you, I'll tell you a little bit about him. I'm like, okay. So about 2 or 3 months later, we had the chance to spend some time. And I said, hey, what about this Wilson? And he says, come on, let's take a ride. We got in the car. We drove out. This was in Alabama. We drove out, out in the countryside. And his first thing was, Wilson is the most brilliant man you've never heard of. And basically, in a nutshell, the Wilson that my father worked on a project for it appears to be a member of this brilliant family of these guys who were involved with the 1890s Airship Mystery.
Yeah,
the Sonora Aero Club in the 1850s.
About that anymore.
What's that?
The 1890s Airship Mystery. That's one of those things like, why don't people talk about this? Because everyone, it's like the world starts with Roswell. But there's actually
the ET
not to open up a can of worms.
The ET people either want to insist that you know, like Aurora and the 1890s Airship Mystery was extraterrestrial flying saucers, or the skeptics just want to say it was all an April Fool's Day hoax. And neither side really gives an honest look at the actual data that's there. Those who give an honest look usually go you know, to you know, the perspective that I share with others, that there was something a little bit more human and down to earth, but still amazing. And there were Wilsons involved in that. There was a Wilson running a very classified project that my dad was involved with, according to my dad and my mentor. You know, it's a whole interesting topic that, you know, is a show in itself, the topic of this Wilson character. When I first met Joseph Farrell, 2004, at one of David Childress's AUP conferences, it was late night at David's Wex clubhouse, and we're in the library of the clubhouse, and there's Joseph Farrell, there's myself, and there's Dorothy Murdoch, who used to write under the name Acharya S. You know, whatever you think about her.
Oh yeah, wow.
Yeah, okay. Whatever people think about her writing, her books, and her theories, Dorothy herself was a wonderful lady. She's no longer with us, unfortunately. She passed way too young, but she was just a wonderful person. And it was us three talking late one night. I was just getting to know Joseph, and I said, what have you ever heard of Wilson? And Joseph's eyes bugged out, and he had his pipe. And that was our first connection. That's when we knew we, you know, had a like mind, because we all started with Wilson. So it's interesting when you ask about Wilson.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry, Walter. Hold on one second, my friend. God bless. Sorry about that. It was real life came in.
No problem. If you got to go, I can.
No, I don't gotta get, you know, someone else for someone else. Okay. But I know you got to go eventually at some point.
Yeah,
I do. For a long time. We're probably going on hour number 2 here. So hey, but you know, Walter, the great thing to say about that is the following: if we were able to, with no pre-planned agenda, get 2 hours going, I dare say that one of these days you should come back here again.
I would love to
do this again.
I would love to. Yeah.
That'd be wonderful. I'm not trying to cut you off. I mean, you can go as long as you want to, but I won't give you any more questions. Whatever you want.
I think you said there was one more person that had after the Wilson question.
Oh yeah. You know what? Actually, you know what? Let's do this. Hal Putoff.
Mm-hmm.
And now I know he's now associated with the To the Stars Academy. People were talking about him in association with remote viewing, but I also know, I think that I don't want to speculate about anything here, but I believe there's also a Scientology connection to Dr. Hal Putoff.
Right. And I just learned that recently. I didn't know that, honestly, because I'm not like a Hal Putoff guy. Now, my friend Greg Bishop knows a lot more about Hal Putoff than I ever have. I personally didn't know that there was a Scientology connection, which I don't know if it means he was a Scientologist or is. I personally find that unfortunate, because you know, from what I've seen from, you know, all the sources, both sides of the story, I have trouble with that organization and
right.
You know, obviously some of the things they do and the guy running it. So
to say the least, yeah.
You know, so I tend to look askance at people that, you know, are a part of it. You know, if they were and they got away from it, you know, I get that, but you know, it makes you wonder. Okay, there's just something about their judgment that I question.
Right.
You know. Or their motives.
Right. Well, you have the organization, then you also have free zone science. I mean, I'm fascinated by L. Ron Hubbard and the quote unquote tech. I'm one of these guys.
Yeah.
If you read through it, there's probably a couple of things you'll pull out that are just very interesting.
Oh, he was an interesting guy, yeah,
to say the least.
Yeah.
To say the least. And then there's also so many strange connections between some of this UFOlogy stuff and Scientology, because there's conjecture about Scientology's involvement with remote viewing, you know, whether they were involved at, you know, Stanford Research Institute, and then also Ingo Swann was a kind of it wasn't very popular, you know, until after his passing, was a Scientologist. And that's according to Bill Ryan over at Project Avalon Forum fame, who is I believe to this day a practicing free zone Scientologist. So there's all you know, but then again we start talking about Ryan records, start talking about the Avery,
you know,
and
free zone is, you're looking at the writings of Hubbard, and you're doing your own study. You're doing,
Right.
I think obviously the problem that, and if that's what put off is, okay, that's a different category. My issue is the organizational Scientology.
Absolutely.
The Church of Scientology. That's the problem. Sure. Yeah.
No, the distinction is noteworthy, and one that I make myself all the time. So there you go, baby. I mean, look, Walter, thank you so much for this. Is a fast, little long, strange trip it's been.
Well, thank you again for allowing me the opportunity
no doubt.
to ask for clarification on that issue. I think we did get it clarified. And I love talking with you about this stuff. I'd love to talk again about this strange woo-woo world that we have experienced.
Absolutely, to say the least. Hey, man, interesting things going on. To remember that when all this stuff all the oxygen is being sucked out of the room by fantastical speculation and all this crazy, crazy stuff, remember that don't forget that I think this happens a lot to people. There's no one from Stanton Freeman to Richard Dolan to Joseph P. Farrell to Walter Bosley on the quote-unquote more pragmatic side of this research that didn't come to this world with an open mind and an open heart and lots of strange experiences and weird. I'm going to crawl all the way on the twig, on the leaf, on the lily for some speculation here.
That's right.
Joseph P. Farrell has nothing on your Joseph P. Farrell.
Hey, at some point you should have a conversation with him. I think that would be fascinating.
No, I would love to have a conversation. First of all, I'll tell you, the one thing is that everyone that I know, from Walter Bosley to Joseph P. Farrell to Richard Dolan, at one point in my storied career on YouTube, have talked just immense amounts of trash about these people. And when it comes to Joseph P. Farrell, dude, as an American to American, some of the shit that comes out of that homie's mouth, I feel like, dude, you know what I mean? Like, we need guys like MacArthur back again. That guy should be put on. That guy should answer some questions. Are you serious? I'm going to give you a theory that you can bring to Joseph P. Farrell that you could say this. I have a theory. Joseph P. Farrell legit is Christian. Christian. Saves.
Oh, don't you know his history?
I know. I know that he's got his
degree, his doctorate.
Do
you know that he's a highly respected theological writer?
I did not know that. I mean, I think
Christian Orthodoxy, and
that's the connection. Orthodoxy.
He was in the Orthodox Church. He's a bishop.
He's a bishop. Dude, listen, hold on. Here's my theory. He says so much un-American crap because he believes that the foul Roman popery is taking over for the Orthodox Church, and he thinks that one of the most authentic, here's a theory, speculation, that the authentic church, the closest thing that we have to authentic church, is currently the Russian Orthodox Church, and that's why he says so many things that are kind of Putin-y, to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
Just a theory. So if you see them, say to him, hey, well, if you talk to him, you'll talk to him like Tuesday, like you'll talk to him over coffee tonight. When you talk to him next, say, C.W. Chanter says he knows that if there's any block to Joseph P. Farrell talking to me, it's probably because I've accused him of being un-American and implying that if there was a Joseph P. McCarthy tribunal, that sure, it went bad in the past, but if I could reconvene for just a second, I'd have that guy in the stand in 2 seconds. You know what I mean? Earlobes and everything. You know what I mean? Listen, hey, I'll plug in the virtual organ. Boom. There you go. Tell him he can bring his hat. Yo.
The pipe or the cigarettes?
Listen, it's okay with the one hat he usually uses, but what about that fruity hat that he's got, the little tiny Bavarian thing that he's got going?
Is it Hamburg?
Oh, the Hamburg has got to go. That is not a good look. That is not a good. I remember the first time I saw the Hamburg, they had him at a 3/4 angle shot, and he was also holding the cigarette. And for a minute there, I thought Quentin Crisp had come back from the dead. Okay. Oh my gosh. And I don't know.
He's like,
no, but he had the cigarette on, so it was like totally, you know what I mean? Like, hey, big boy, you want to party? You know, I was like, whoa, come on, Joseph. Man, and I felt like he probably knew at that point that putting on the Hamburg was like, he was just experimenting with it. You know, you have like these like bold fashion ideas on a Saturday night that you think that this is totally going to work, and then you're out there on the dance floor going, "Oh," pat yourself in the mirror, and you're like, "Ah, man, jeez,
that's good.
Plaid with stripes, no."
Well, I'll let him know.
so that's right. So I have this whole back theory about the influence of the Orthodox Church in this conspiracy theory world, because it's like there are several people that have made kind of obtuse comments about the Eastern Orthodox Church. To say not, well, I mean, we're not even good if we start talking about Peter Lavanda and the Orthodox Church or the traveling bishops, we'd be here all day.
Yeah.
And then you also have the weird Douglas Dietrich has made several weird statements about his involvement in the Orthodox Church, and I was like, there's no way that he didn't get that from someone else. And then also I believe he went real conservative. He went real MAGA for a while, but I think he was associated with the SSP, the real SSP conference. Who am I thinking of? Dyer. James
Jay Dyer, yeah.
Jay Dyer.
To orthodoxy, yeah.
Yeah. He went super freak. He went super freak.
He's an interesting guy. I find him a bit aloof, but
yeah. I find him a bit indictable. I don't necessarily would ever want to be anywhere near him when the Southern Poverty Law Center was, I don't know, say traveling the land. But that's me. That's my statement, not yours. That's my statement, not yours. Don't associate Walter. I can't wait to, because you're going to be like damned by my connection to me. They're going to be like, Walter Bosley associates with that Jew. C.W. Chanter, of course, has a problem with Jay Dyer because he thinks the Southern Poverty Center should go after him. Why? Because he has a MAGA hat? Yeah, that's why. Okay, crazy stuff. Don't forget Jay Dyer. The new representative of the Orthodox conspiracy. Oh, I'm like, there's something here. Well, I'm going to have... So I think I'm going to have to go right to the top. I think I'm going to have to go bother Joseph P. Farrell. And I know it's hard because it's a big name, but this is the crazy thing about this scene. If people knew how close to Earth we all traveled, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Even David Wilcock, like, reach out and touch someone. You can send them, you know what I mean? Like, we're all, this is a crazy, kooky world. But anyway, all that stuff notwithstanding, do you have any closing thoughts, or you feel like we did it and ready to say goodbye?
No, I'll tell you what, closing thought will be let's look forward to next time.
Absolutely. Let's make that happen.
Let's talk about this time thing.
Let's make that happen sooner rather than later. God damn, Walter, you've been a great guy. And now you know what? I don't have to regret any of my tweets. Everything happens for a reason. I must have known you in a former life.
That's right.
If if you review your Twitter timeline, you and the Twitter timeline between you and me, I guarantee if you look there now with one eye closed and one eye open and then flipping back and forth every once in a while, you're going to see there's all sorts of causal connections between my jokes, the Empire of the Wheel, and the Orthodox Church.
Synchronicity.
That's it. It just makes sense.
It's the fabric of reality. It's the threads in the fabric of reality.
It's becoming the fabric of reality. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. There you go. Well, God bless you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us today.
We'll talk soon.
Absolutely, we will. God bless you. Take care, sir.
All right, you too.
And there you go, Walter Bosley. Wow, interesting stuff. I'll tell you, folks, I'm going to end with this. A little kind of reverse opening Tonight Show monologue. And not even the Tonight Show. I wanted to go pre-Johnny Carson. I forget what the guy's name was. Who's the guy before Carson? I forget. Closing monologue. Just a little bit, not talking about this. The interview stands by itself, but today was an interesting day. I became aware, speaking of time travel, a person who is interested in time traveling sent me a DM on Twitter, and it said, what happened to the video on your alternative channel? Did you pull it, or was it taken down? This is maybe an hour before I'm scheduled to talk to Walter. Okay. Hey, Rodrigo Vieira, feel free, everyone. You know what? Pick a new title for the interview. Pick a new title if you want to, and let me know, and we'll Jack Parr. Thank you, Stella. Thank you, Stella. Jack Parr. As I'm doing my Jack Parr, put your alternative suggestions for titles in the live chat, and we will we'll pick a good one and we'll retitle it. Interesting story. Let me tell you this. So, I go on, like I said, someone had asked me, time traveler had asked me, were you aware that that your video with the Corey Good doxing documentation had been taken down? I hadn't. I really hadn't been aware of that fact. I go to my channel, and sure enough, that video had received a comment, but it was and we'll go through maybe later on tonight. I'll do share screen and take you guys through the timeline and show you what's so interesting about. Yeah, okay. I'm busy right now, but I'll talk to you in a minute. Okay, love you, Mom. I'll be there. Is it okay if I'm with you in a minute? That's just great. God bless you. That the video had been taken down. I looked, and I had seen. I said, "Well, what happened? It's missing. It truly is missing." There was some indication that it was taken down because of a privacy strike. That contained private information. For what it's worth, just putting this out there as data, not putting out this to form any sort of speculation, because talking to Walter, like I learned, you really have to. There's the mind races to a conclusion. You see things, you think that it all makes sense, and at one point when I started seeing things, I was convinced that it was this someone had done it, or that person had done it, or this for that reason. For what it's worth, Unirock's video covering the same material is still up. For what it's worth, I and another person closely associated with this material and this research both asked ourselves the question, we didn't know why Unirock's video was still up, considering that we thought that it was actually had more personal information than mine did. So could it have been that community? But wait, hold on. If you're an outsider like Corey Good, you might say, well, strike one video, not the other, because that will create controversy between these two people. We'll let them fratricide each other, and we'll move on to reap those benefits. Bottom line. So the video was taken down, and I say to myself the following. At first, I was sad. I was sad. I never at any point felt anything that I would call similar to anger. Nothing like an anger emotion. Just a kind of a little bit of a bittersweet sadness. And then I thought to myself, some people were asking me how I felt about how I was doing about it, and I said the following. Oh shoot, I gotta go. I said the following. And then I really got a jet. I got a jet. Okay. I said, no matter what happens, no matter who gets credit, no matter whose video gets X number of views, I know in my heart of hearts, the experience that I went through working with the whistleblower, working with Kelly, and the process of collating the information, looking at the information, analyzing the information, seeing what it did, making that video, putting that video out there, having the community respond to it, having all the after effects and knock-on effects occur. When all is said and done, and when all the smoke clears, the data's out there. I've got these screenshots still. I can throw them up on Twitter. I probably will. I could throw them up anywhere. Who knows? But the video can be taken down. But what can't be taken down is my real life timeline experience, my real experience of dealing with real live human beings, having them say things to me like, I trust you, having them laugh and joke with me as we talk about the craziness of people's personal information accidentally getting out. Throughout this whole experience, backtracking, I feel close to Joe from the Carolinas. I feel close to many of the people that I've worked with, and and throughout all this. So no one can ever take that away from me. And I reflect and meditate upon the fact that I'm at a point in my life where the YouTube drama, the YouTube things that can happen, the this, the that, the speculation, people's theories and ideas, that on the one hand, and the real life experiences, they can take my channel away, right? The powers that be. They'll never take away my experiences with real live human beings. And I see Reemsy in the live chat. I see Jet Petty. I see even Lady Zaga. I see these names. I see these names over and over again, and I know I don't see any bots. I see Darcy. I see Joe from the Carolinas is here. God bless you. God bless you. No one can take those real world experiences away from me. Take all my videos. Take all my channels. The experiences remain. And I'm happy to know that I know that if they came to me tomorrow and said, CW, you can have 100,000 subscribers, X amount of dollars in Google, Snapchat, whatever money, and all of your work remains up and etc. But all your prior experiences with these real life human beings will be wiped, or you can have the memories of the group hangouts and the crazy stuff and even the yelling, you know. I love you. If no one told you that they loved you today, someone just did. And that someone is CW Chanter. I'd take you over anything, guys. I really would. Sorry, Holy. Get off your clout. Talks amongst yourselves. Joe from the Carolinas is a homo. Discuss. We joke because joking can be a shield. I love you. Okay. Never forget that. Talk to you all real soon.